Hello and welcome to Board Game Madness. I'm Mike Ganade, and in today's matchup, we have two sci-fi deck builders going head-to-head. We have Star Realms, I actually have the Colony Wars expansion here too, going against, this is the number 11 seed, going against a newer deck building game, the Star Wars deck building game, which is the number 22 seed. So, as always, I like to start off by giving you a quick overview of what the games are about. So we have two deck building games here. If you're unfamiliar with deck building, basically you start with a starter deck of cards. Those cards generate resources, and you buy new cards that you shuffle into your deck and add to them as you play the game. So you're building a deck in real time. Star Realms is about different space factions blasting each other in space. So you're going to be buying ships that do damage and generate resources, and building like star bases and orbital installations. And Star Wars deck building game is about the rebellion versus the empire. So you'll be buying ships and heroes based in the Star Wars universe and going head to head against the other player who's playing as either the rebellion or the empire. Each player takes on one of the roles. So first up, we have production, and there's not much to talk about when it comes to production here. Star Realms is just cards, so it's really going to come down to art. So Star Realms has sort of two different card types. You have these bases that are permanent cards, and then you have ships that you're going to play. These are the cards that generate resources, generate attack, that you play, heal you, do things like that you play on your turn. They cycle through your deck. And if you couldn't tell from my Star Realms box, this game's been played a lot, and it came out back in 2013, so I've had it a while as well. But Star Realms has been around for a while. It's a good little deck builder, but it's just cards. The nice thing is it's pretty cheap. I think it was like 15 bucks when I bought it. It's probably a little bit more now. Now, Star Wars deck building game is also primarily cards. It has a unique mechanic where you get to pick your base, where your base is, and you get to choose a planet. But then it's got cards, set in the Star Wars universe. We're going to play ships and different people. A lot of the cards, it is mostly cards. When I bought it, it came with sleeves, so I usually don't sleeve my games, but this game came with sleeves. So that's why it's all sleeved. And it does have some cubes, some cube resources to keep track of the resources you're generating. And it has this little board you put in front of yourself to track the force balance. So you have this it's effectively a card. This feels a little cheap, but you put this between each player to tug of war on the force from the light to the dark side. So production-wise, Star Wars deck building game is a little more expensive. It came with sleeves, but when you take into account price, I don't think Star Wars is giving you anything extra. In fact, it's probably giving you a little less for the price, but it has the Star Wars licensing. So it really comes down to artwork. And for me, despite how many times I've played Star Realms, I've actually never really particularly liked the art direction of Star Realms. They have another game called Hero Realms, and I think the artwork in that game is substantially better than Star Realms, but ironically, I think Star Realms is the better game. But I am a big fan of the artwork and art direction in the Star Wars deck building game. I just think, it's Fantasy Flight, so I just think they have a higher standard when it comes to artwork. Whereas Star Realms, this company is much more independent and much smaller, so give them credit where credit's due. This is a great little game for its price. But when it comes to production, aka artwork, we're going Star Wars. We got to go Star Wars. Next up, we have mechanics. Now, here's where things get tough because the mechanics are almost identical. I mean, every turn you're drawing 5 cards, you're playing 5 cards, and you're gaining resources and buying new cards. The Star Wars deck building game has a couple wrinkles to it, which I like thematically. As the Empire, you can't, if you're playing the Empire player, you can't get Luke Skywalker into your deck. You can't buy that card because it wouldn't make sense thematically. You can't have Luke fighting for the Empire. So each card is geared towards it's either neutral or towards the Empire or towards the Rebel Alliance. And one of the cool things is that you have this mechanic where you can sabotage or destroy cards in the middle row instead of buying them if they don't match you. So you don't have to let Luke Skywalker sit out there so your opponent can get them if you're playing as the Empire. You can use your resources to get rid of Luke Skywalker and discard him or sort of banish him from the game, which is something new that isn't typically in deck building games because usually you can just buy all the cards in the market. So that is sort of an interesting wrinkle. You also have the force meter that you're fighting over. But my favorite mechanic in the Star Wars deck building game is these planets that you get to choose from. These actually act very similarly to Star Realms. In fact, I think it's very clear that Star Wars the deck building game borrowed a lot from Star Realms as far as game mechanics go. But you have the ability throughout the course of the game, you're fighting to capture planets. And they have a health hit point here, similar to the bases in Star Realms. But one of the things you can do is when a planet is captured of yours, you can pick all of your planets up and sort of place a planet down, and it gives you a boost or an effect that you need at the time. So there's these really cool moments where when you defeat the rebel base, they can move the rebel base and activate a new planet that gives them a buff that potentially helps them adapt to your playstyle, which I really appreciate and think is cool thematically as well. Star Realms has all of the same mechanics as the Star Wars deck building game essentially, except it's simpler. It doesn't have a force meter. It has bases that you put out. You have some that are optional to destroy, and then some that act as shields. And you're basically just trying to beat down your opponent's life force to 0, or their health, or whatever it's called. So so even while it can be played multiplayer with multiple decks, it is also sort of a head-to-head game where you're just trying to eliminate a player. So, it's sort of hard to pick one here because on the one hand, Star Wars deck building game built on everything that Star Realms sort of did before it. I mean, this came out in 2022 or 2023, whereas this came out in 2013, so it's 10 years older than Star Wars. But that being said, I think as someone who really likes the deck building mechanic, while I really appreciate Star Realms being sort of the grandfather of what the Star Wars game is, I do find the Star Wars game more enticing. I mean, when I first got this game, I think we played it head to head like 3 times in a row or something. Like we played this game pretty hard when it first came out. And when it was first bought, I think we bought it at a convention or something with some other people. So for me, I mean, maybe we should give it to Star Realms because it's based so much on it. You know what? Let's undo it. Deck building game borrowed a lot from Star Realms. Star Realms deserves credit. They came up with a lot of the mechanics and a lot of the features that Star Wars built off of. So while in the current time frame, I think Star Wars is the better game, mechanically speaking, it basically borrowed the framework from Star Realms. So we're going to give it to Star Realms to keep this one a little more interesting. So at the buzzer, Star Realms puts up a 3-pointer, and it's going to win the mechanics round. Let's go to theme. I don't even think we need to dwell on this very long. If you are a Star Wars fan, like I am, I mean, you're going to go Star Wars deck building game. I mean, the theme of this game is at least 50% of the reason I wanted to try it. I mean, I like deck building, and it's Star Wars. So I immediately knew this was something I wanted to grab, especially since it's a pretty fair price. I think I got it for 25 or 30 bucks. Star Realms, I love you, man. I played you to death. Your box is beat up. But, you know, as far as the theme goes, this is just generic starfighters fighting in space. The factions are pretty well defined. So you've got like the blobs and, you know, the Star Empire and the Machine Cult and then more of a federation. So you've got sort of the standard trappings of what is in Star Wars and what's in Star Trek, but you know, it's this generic theme. It's not anything to stick your teeth into. Although I guess if you're looking for a simpler deck building game and this, you know, you're newer to board games, Star Realms is definitely a good place to start. It's not like either of these games are bad. You know, and in fact, you could probably buy both of these games for the cost of one of the games in some of our other matchups. I mean, we're talking 15 and 25 bucks. So for under 50, 60 bucks, you could have both of these games and really get into the differences, and maybe you like one better than the other. I certainly like that I can throw this in my backpack and take it with me. It's so small. I mean, this is pretty small too. It fits in a backpack, but I mean, this is smaller if you're traveling and want to bring a deck building game with you. So, but I mean, theme-wise, Star Wars, let's just move on. I think most of you out there will probably agree with me that the Star Wars theme is stronger than this Star Realms generic space theme. It's like a nationally known IP that's owned by Disney. So let's be real here. Okay, last but not least, we have replayability. I really think replayability is a tie here. I mean, I've played both of these games a ton. So the only reason I would pick Star Wars right now, if you ask me which game to play, is because it's newer and I've played it less. You know, back 3 or 4 years ago, Star Realms was my go-to deck building game. I mean, this is the only deck building game. You know, the first game I ever designed is called Brass Empire, and it's a deck building game. And I built that deck building game to sort of fill the void of what other deck building games offered and what was available out there. And Star Realms, when I played it, is the closest thing to what I sort of envisioned for Brass Empire. The only difference is Star Realms is a little bit too much take that compared to Brass Empire. It's a little more head-to-head, but both of these are certainly very head-to-head, and they're leaning into it. But as far as when I was designing a deck building game that fit exactly what I wanted, this game fit that bill for so long until I sort of made my own game with some other mechanics outside of this. But this was the closest deck building game when I was researching that came the closest to what I wanted. And this was at the top of my list for years and years and years. So replayability wise, I'm going to say it's a tie. They both have similar central market decks. I guess if we wanted to edge it out here, I mean, I don't want to go into overtime. So for me, I'm going to pick Star Wars deck building game just because the only reason I would say Star Realms has more replayability in these base games is because it's been around longer and has expansions, like this Colony Wars expansion. But I will tell you that I was very disappointed with this expansion. It didn't really introduce any new mechanics, just sort of revised the cards. And I know for a fact, I mean, how is this Star Wars game not going to have expansions at some point from Fantasy Flight? I mean, there's going to be expansions for this game too. And for me right now, if I had to pick one, I'm going to go Star Wars deck building. And if you ask me, which game do you want to play right now, having played both of these games a lot, I would want to play Star Wars. So for me personally right now, since it's my collection and I get to pick what is potentially selling and getting rid of, I would be okay with selling Star Realms because I've gotten so much out of it. I would be pretty devastated if I had to sell Star Wars deck building game right now. So for that reason alone, we've got to give it to Star Wars. So we have an upset, the number 22 taking out the number 11 seed. Moving on into the tournament, we'll see how far it gets. But that is it for this matchup. Once again, thank you for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe to our channel. We're doing this ad-free with no financial incentive whatsoever. So we're hoping that we can at least build some more social media presence and it's something that people enjoy. So please let us know what you think in the comments below and be sure to like and subscribe and watch all the videos in our tournament here. So to help motivate us to do it again. But that's it for today. in our matchup. Thanks for watching, and we will see you tomorrow with another head-to-head game matchup.